You know, usually when we think about a hostile corporate takeover, there is this very predictable, almost like cinematic script to it.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, you have the aggressive buyer moving in the shadows, the frantic emergency board meetings at midnight, the sudden just terrifying freezing of
That's
assets.
a very cloak and dagger.
Exactly. And then there is this ruthless, methodical dismantling of the target company's leadership. Like, the new buyer doesn't just want to own the company.
No, they want to send a message.
Right. They want to systematically prove that the current CEO is completely incompetent, until the new owner is just undeniably in charge.
Yeah, it's really all about power and leverage. You're
Yeah.
trying to expose the absolute weakness of the old regime. You systematically hack their servers, you disable their firewalls one by one,
Oh, for sure.
and you just show everyone watching that the old boss has zero control.
It's a very clinical, strategic process of replacement.
Exactly. I mean, you don't just
Yeah.
walk in and change the logo on the door, right?
Right. That's too easy.
You target the infrastructure. You target the revenue streams. You take out their supply chains. You're systematically proving that the old regime is not just failing, but entirely obsolete.
You have to, break the illusion of their competence entirely.
Yep.
So it's the ultimate corporate takeover. But then, if you step back into ancient history and you look at what is arguably one of the most famous stories ever told, you suddenly realize you are looking at the exact same blueprint.
Oh, it really is.
Only the CEO in this scenario is a man who literally believes he is a living god.
Just a slight difference in ego there.
It's just a little bit.
Yeah.
And the corporation is this ancient, brutal superpower.
Mm-hmm.
And the hostile takeover, it is entirely cosmic.
It is the ultimate clash of sovereignties. I mean, it's the very definition of an irresistible force, meaning a very stubborn, very mortal object.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we aren't just, reading ancient history. We are looking at the blueprint for how ultimate power is dismantled.
We are diving into a really extensive stack of theological breakdowns, historical analyses, and some truly fascinating infographics today.
Yeah, all detailing the 10 plagues of Egypt. And our mission for this deep dive, and this is for you listening right now, is to move way past the Sunday school versions you might have heard growing up.
Definitely.
We are moving past the cinematic Hollywood special effects versions of these plagues, the ones with the booming voices and the CGI hail.
Right.
We are going to uncover what the historical and theological text actually calls the anatomy of false worship.
Which is such a great phrase.
It is. We are going to discover how these ancient events were actually a highly targeted surgical dismantling of an empire's entire worldview, just exposing the complete impotence of their gods.
And perhaps more importantly, we're going to look at why this ancient blueprint matters so much for how you navigate modern systems of power today.
Yes.
Because the underlying mechanics of power, of trust, and human idolatry, those things have not changed one bit in 3,000 years.
No, not at all.
The human heart operates on the exact same software today that it did in ancient Egypt.
So whether you are deeply familiar with the biblical text or you are just wildly curious about ancient history, psychology, human nature, this deep dive is going to completely reframe how you look at power, authority, and what we actually place our ultimate trust in.
It really is.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to set the stage here because it all really starts with a single, just incredibly arrogant question.
It does.
In the book of Exodus, chapter 5, verse 2, Pharaoh is confronted by Moses, and Moses walks in with a demand from Yahweh, the God of Israel, to let the enslaved Israelites go.
Right.
And Pharaoh's response is just dripping with contempt. He says, and I quote, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice?"
That right there, that is the defining question of the entire narrative.
Wow.
And what we have to understand is that Pharaoh isn't just asking for a name here.
Right, like he's filling out a form.
Exactly. He isn't saying, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that deity's name. Could you spell it for my royal scribes?
Right.
No. He is making a massive counterclaim of sovereignty. Because the historical context here is crucial.
Setting the scene.
Yeah. Before the plagues even begin, Israel is brutally enslaved.
Yeah.
Pharaoh has hardened his heart. He has deliberately increased their suffering by making them gather their own straw to make bricks.
Which is just cruel.
Incredibly cruel. And he treats human life as entirely expendable. But beneath all that, political and economic brutality is a profound spiritual rebellion.
Because Pharaoh is not just a political king in the way we think of politicians or prime ministers today, right?
No, not at all.
He is a theological symbol. He
Yeah.
functions as this figure of self-deification.
Right. In the Egyptian worldview, he claims to be a divine son,
Like literally.
literally. The literal incarnation of Horus on earth and the son of Ra, the sun god.
Man. So when he asks, who is the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
He's basically saying, I am the God here. I hold all the cards.
Yeah.
I own the people, the land, the weather, the economy. Your God has absolutely no jurisdiction in my zip code.
And that economy, that entire culture in kingship, was built completely upon a system of idolatry and self-exaltation.
Okay.
We really have to paint a picture of what living in ancient Egypt was actually like.
Yeah, help us visualize that.
So their religion assumed a world that was populated and governed by multiple fragmented powers.
Fragment it.
Yes, you had a god for the river, a god for the sky, a god for the crops, a god for childbirth.
It's like a massive utility company, but for reality itself.
That is the perfect way to put it.
Yes.
A utility company. You pay your spiritual bill to the river god to get water.
Right.
You pay your bill to the fertility goddess to have a child.
Hmm.
And Pharaoh sits at the very apex of that system, mediating between these fragmented gods and the people.
So he is the ultimate broker of reality.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me stop you right there, because this is where my mind immediately goes when I look at the setup.
Sure.
If the God of Israel is supremely powerful, right, and he hears the cries of the enslaved Israelites, and he wants to answer Pharaoh's arrogant question, why the drawn-out 10-step process?
Right.
I mean, really, why not just teleport the Israelites out of there? Or, use one massive, undeniable miracle to just end it on day one.
Right. Just get it over with.
Collapse the palace, to teleport the slaves to the promised land, roll credits. Why go through this episodic, drawn-out theater?
That is the perfect question to ask, because it leads us right to the structural genius of the plagues.
Okay, I'm listening.
If this was just about moving a population from point A to point B, God absolutely could have done that instantly.
Right.
He could have just beamed them out. But this is not merely a rescue mission. It is an ontological confrontation.
Okay, ontology, I know that's a heavy philosophy word. Break that down for us, like the study of what's real.
Exactly. Ontology is the study of the nature of reality itself.
Okay.
What actually is real? What is the fundamental structure of the universe?
Right.
Imagine you are wearing virtual reality goggles, and the VR program is telling you that you are flying through space.
Okay, I'm with you.
Ontology is the person taking the goggles off your head and showing you that you are actually sitting in a chair in your living room.
Oh, wow. I love that analogy.
The plagues are confronting the Egyptian worldview at that foundational level of reality. God isn't just trying to free slaves. He is exposing the pretensions of empire.
He's taking the VR goggles off of Egypt.
Exactly. He is revealing that he has no rival. And so a 10-step process wasn't drawn out for dramatic tension or like special effects.
Right.
It was drawn out because it was a surgical, methodical strike against the entire Egyptian pantheon, one by one. It was deconstruction of their reality.
Man. So let's get into this systematic dismantling, because this is where the hostile takeover analogy really comes to life for me.
Now let's do it.
Looking at the breakdowns in the historical and biblical data we have here, it is staggering how specific this was. Every single plague was a targeted assassination of a false god's
It
reputation.
really was.
It wasn't random chaos, it was a checklist. So let's walk through them, looking at how they escalate. And let's not just list them. Let's group them by how they systematically destroy the pillars of the Egyptian state.
Perfect.
Phase 1 is the complete collapse of their economic and infrastructure security. This starts with Plague 1, the water of the Nile turning to blood. And the target here is Hapi, the god of the Nile.
To understand the impact of this, you really have to realize that the Nile was the absolute center of Egyptian life.
It was everything.
It was their Wall Street, their interstate highway system, and their national water supply all rolled into one.
Wow.
It was their source of life, their agriculture, their trade, their fertility. They worshipped Hapi because Hapi brought the annual floods that made the soil rich.
Right. They depended on him completely.
Exactly. So by turning the waters of life into a testimony of death, God is striking at the very foundation of their economic and physical security.
It's like the stock market crashing to absolute zero overnight, but infinitely worse because you also can't drink the stock market.
Right.
Their ultimate economic security blanket is instantly turned into a nightmare. You have to imagine the sheer logistics of this.
Oh, it would be horrifying.
The smell of millions of rotting fish, the entire nation suddenly without drinking water, is a massive national emergency, and it proves Happy, this god they trusted to sustain them, is completely powerless.
He's been hacked.
Yes, the firewall is down.
And that leads directly into the psychological torment of the next phase. Because when your primary infrastructure fails, human nature dictates that you turn to your secondary sources of comfort and security.
Right, you look for a backup plan.
Exactly. For Egypt, that was their general abundance, their fertility, the sheer vibrant life of the land. Which brings us to the second plague.
The frogs.
Yeah.
Plague 2. This targets Hecate, the frog goddess of fertility.
Yep.
Now, I have to admit, to a modern reader, a plague of frogs sounds almost comical.
It does sound a bit silly today.
It sounds like a bad prank, but the irony here is actually devastating, isn't it?
It is a brilliant, dark irony. See, frogs were a symbol of abundance and life in Egypt because of the river.
Exactly. Because they emerged from the Nile after the flood, they represented the multiplying of life. The goddess Hecate was literally depicted as a woman with the head of a frog, and she was the goddess of childbirth and creation.
Okay, so it's a very sacred symbol for them.
Highly sacred. But here, God takes their sacred symbol of blessing and multiplies it until it becomes an unbearable, suffocating infestation.
It's like the ultimate be careful what you wish for scenario.
Totally.
Imagine praying to the god of frogs for wealth and abundance, and suddenly your bed, your oven, your kneading bowls, your shoes are just filled with frogs.
And then, when the plague ends, the frogs don't just disappear.
Oh, that's right.
They die. They pile up in rotting heaps. The text says the whole land stank. What you worshipped as abundance is now literally rotting in your living room. The psychological horror of that is wild.
And it continues to escalate in this environmental phase. So Plague 3 brings gnats, or lice, arising from the very dust of the earth. The target here is Jeb, the god of the earth.
Right. The dust of the ground, the solid earth they walk on and rely on, suddenly becomes a source of torment.
But there is a crucial detail here regarding the Egyptian power structure.
Okay, what is it?
Up until this point, Pharaoh's magicians, his spiritual PR team, essentially, have been using their occult arts to try and replicate the plagues.
Right, trying to spin the narrative.
Exactly. They managed to turn a little water to blood. They managed to conjure a few extra frogs, basically saying, see, our gods can do this too. We're still in control.
Everything is fine. The CEO is still in charge.
Yep. But with the dust turning to gnats, the PR spin completely falls apart.
Oh, really?
The text points out that the magicians actually throw their hands up here and say to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God.
Wow. So even the inner circle realizes the earth itself has turned against them.
They tap out. They admit defeat.
That's a huge shift.
Because nature is not autonomous. That is a core theological principle we are uncovering here.
Say more about that.
The plagues demonstrate that nature doesn't operate on its own, nor is it governed by these fragmented, localized deities. It is commanded entirely by the Creator.
Right.
When the dust becomes gnats, creation is simply obeying its true king, and the magicians recognize a power they cannot manipulate.
Which brings us to a massive turning point in the narrative. Plague 4. Swarms of flies.
Yes.
The target is Khepri, the sacred beetle, the god of the dawn, rebirth, and life. Swarms invade the land, getting into the houses, ruining the land. But there's a massive shift in how this play operates compared to the first 3.
A very deliberate shift.
The region of Goshen, which is essentially the slums where the enslaved Israelites live, is completely spared.
This is a vital moment. This is where we really start to see the tale of two nations emerge in stark contrast.
Okay.
Up until now, the plagues were a general national demonstration of power. Egypt and Goshen both experienced the water and the frogs.
Everyone suffered.
Right. But with the flies, God explicitly draws a boundary line. He's showing that he not only has immense power over the elements, but he has precise, localized surgical control.
He distinguishes between his covenant people and the empire that oppresses them.
Exactly.
Think about the psychological terror of that for the Egyptians. To look over the border at Goshen, where your slaves live, and see perfect peace.
Just blue skies.
Blue skies, no flies. While your palaces and mansions are swarming with decay and chaos, it proves that this isn't just a random natural disaster, it is a targeted judgment.
And this geographic targeting continues right into Plague 5, the death of the livestock.
Right.
This is a direct strike against Hathor, the cow goddess, and the Apis bull cult. Hathor was the protector of livestock, a mother goddess.
And once again, this is a devastating economic blow. We are talking about the loss of their beasts of burden, their meat supply, their wealth.
In the ancient world, livestock was your bank account.
Wow. And once again, Goshen is entirely spared.
Yep. Think about the psychological toll this is taking on Pharaoh and the Egyptian elite. Hathor, the protector of cows, cannot save her own sacred animals.
Their wealth, their agriculture, their daily sustenance is being systematically deleted, and their gods are entirely silent.
Just gone.
And if the loss of wealth doesn't break Pharaoh's pride, the assault moves directly onto the human body.
This is where it gets really personal.
Plague 6. Boils. This is a targeted strike against Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of healing, and Imhotep, the god of medicine.
Right.
The text notes a really incredible detail here. It says the magicians couldn't even stand before Moses because of the boils.
It is a profound, undeniable medical failure. The very priests who were supposed to intercede with the gods for healing, the best medical minds in the empire, are so afflicted they can't even stand up.
That is wild.
It proves that human magic, human medicine, and false gods cannot protect the physical body when the Creator passes judgment. The illusion of health and bodily autonomy is entirely shattered.
Okay, hold on. I have to push back here. Earlier, you mentioned that this entire process was a display of divine patience.
I did it.
But we are talking about painful boils on the skin, dead livestock, ruined water, swarms of insects, to a modern ear that just sounds cruel. It sounds like torture. How can anyone look at a nation suffering from boils and starvation and call that patience?
That is a very fair challenge, and it's one a lot of people struggle with. But you have to look at the cadence of the narrative.
Okay.
It seems counterintuitive when we are talking about plagues, but it acts as an escalating warning system.
An escalating warning system.
God isn't being rash. Pharaoh had opportunity after opportunity to relent before each plague. Moses goes to him again and again, explicitly stating what will happen if he refuses to let the people go.
Right.
God doesn't just drop the hammer of ultimate final destruction on day one. He gives space for repentance.
So it's the fact that it's incremental. He's taking away the pillars one by one, giving Pharaoh a chance to surrender before the whole building comes down.
Exactly. The judgments are progressive, they are measured. And this reveals something vital about the moral structure of the universe as presented in these texts.
Yes.
The biblical world is not morally neutral. Oppression, cruelty, the enslavement of an entire people group, the murder of infants, which Pharaoh had commanded years earlier, these things do not just disappear into the ether of history.
They have consequences.
They have cosmic consequences. The universe reacts to injustice. But God gives time. He warns. His patience with Pharaoh is real, but when that patience is met with a continually hardened heart, his justice must eventually act.
So rejected mercy is what eventually solidifies into judgment.
That's a great way to put it.
That totally flips the modern script we have, which says that judgment and love are complete opposites. Like, we tend to think you can either be a loving person or you can be a judgmental person.
All right, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, divine love is not simply indulgence.
What do you mean?
It is not turning a blind eye to evil. It is holy covenant faithfulness. God loves his oppressed people enough to judge the system that is brutally crushing them.
Because a God who does not judge evil, a God who watches slavery and genocide and does nothing, is not a God of love at all.
Exactly. Salvation and judgment are inseparable here. The act of judging Egypt is the exact same act that saves Israel.
That is a massive paradigm shift. Salvation and judgment are inseparable.
Yes.
So back to the plagues. We've seen the economy ruined, the environment turn toxic, the medical system fail. Pharaoh is still hardening his heart. So God moves to phase 3. Cosmic deconstruction.
The sky itself falls.
Plague 7 is hail,
Yeah.
and the target is Nut, the sky goddess.
The sky in Egypt was supposed to be a canopy of blessing. It was supposed to send gentle rain and sunshine for the crops.
Right.
But instead it sends fire and ice. The text describes this terrifying storm of hail mixed with fire, tearing down everything in the fields.
Wow.
Notice the terrifying escalation. We have gone from the water, to the amphibians, to the dust, to the insects, to the animals, to the human body, and now the sky itself is weaponized.
It's all coming down.
The environment that Egypt trusted for survival is being aggressively deconstructed.
Which sets the stage for absolute ruin with Plague 8. Locusts.
Yep.
The target here is Serapis, or Seth, The deities considered protectors of the crops.
And this is devastating.
Because the hail destroyed a massive amount of the agriculture, but whatever was left, whatever the Egyptians were desperately hoping to salvage to survive the winter, is now completely devoured by a swarm of locusts so dense it darkens the land.
The text says the land was stripped entirely bare. Not a green thing remained.
It is literally creation in reverse. Think back to the creation narrative in Genesis. God brings order out of chaos. He separates the waters. He brings forth vegetation and animals.
Exactly, it's creation in reverse.
Here, he is undoing the order of creation to show that he alone sustains it.
When you remove his blessing, when you reject his rule, all you have left is chaos, consumption, and the unraveling of reality.
Man. And then Plague 9. This one always gives me chills when I think about the psychological reality of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Darkness. But not just a cloudy day or an eclipse. The text describes a darkness that could be felt lasting for 3 solid days.
A physical darkness.
Yeah. The target here is Ra, the supreme sun god.
Ra was the apex deity of the Egyptian pantheon. Pharaoh himself was considered the literal son of Ra.
So the stakes couldn't be higher.
Right. The sun was the ultimate symbol of Egyptian power, consistency, and divine favor. So for the sun to be completely blacked out for 3 days is the ultimate theological humiliation.
It is a symbolic undoing of the solar and royal claims of Egypt.
It's the ultimate hack.
Yeah.
The greatest Egyptian god is put in a chokehold, shown to be completely subordinate to the God of Israel.
Try to actually imagine the sheer terror of that. 3 days of pitch black, no fires will light, or if they do, the darkness is so oppressive it doesn't matter.
It's terrifying.
What did they do? They just sat there, in silence, in terror, unable to move, realizing that having everything you rely on, the water, the ground, the sky, the sun itself, turn against you.
Yeah.
Analyzing these first 9 plagues naturally leads into a much deeper discussion about what this reveals concerning the nature of idolatry itself.
It really does.
The theological analysis in our notes defines idolatry not just as the primitive act of bowing down to a golden statue. It defines idolatry as disordered trust. I want to camp out on this concept because this is the core of the whole deep dive.
Disordered trust is a crucial, clarifying concept. When modern people hear the word idol, they think of primitive people dancing around a carved piece of wood.
Right, like something out of an Indiana Jones movie.
Exactly. But Egypt didn't just have statues as art pieces. They trusted in the Nile for water. They trusted in political authority for stability. They trusted in ritual control for prosperity.
They relied on them.
Yes. When we talk about idolatry as disordered trust, we are talking about taking something created, a good thing like water or agriculture or government, and treating it as if it were the creator.
Elevating it too high.
Right. It is taking something finite and demanding that it give you infinite security, infinite meaning, and ultimate salvation.
And the analysis points out that idols, these things we place our disordered trust in, always overpromise and underdeliver.
Always.
They promise security, identity, control, but they cannot preserve your life in a crisis. The plagues are a real-time demonstration that wealth cannot stop death.
No.
Medical technology cannot stop a divine decree. Political power cannot stop ultimate judgment.
What is truly fascinating here is how the plagues operate as a diagnostic tool for the human heart.
Oh, I like that, a diagnostic tool.
Yeah, they expose exactly what happens when trust is disordered.
Yeah.
The false gods of Egypt could not protect what they claimed to sustain.
Yeah, right.
And this historical event demonstrates a profound truth. Idols are exposed most clearly not in philosophical debate, not in times of peace, but in crisis.
When things hit the fan.
Exactly. When the pressure is on, when the stock market crashes, when the diagnosis is bad, what you truly trust is violently revealed.
And what Pharaoh trusted in was his own absolute sovereignty. His disordered trust was in himself. The text paints him as anti-God, anti-creation, and anti-human. By hoarding power, by refusing to yield, and by treating human beings as disposable instruments for his building projects, his empire became inherently self-destructive.
He brought it on himself.
He brought the plagues upon his own people through his stubbornness. Which brings us to the terrifying climax of this confrontation.
The 10th plague.
We've reached the 10th plague, and this is where the narrative shifts from deconstructing the Egyptian worldview to establishing the core of the biblical worldview.
If God has systematically destroyed the Egyptian economy, humiliated their gods, and blacked out their sun, Pharaoh's only remaining claim to power, his only remaining legacy, is his own lineage.
His dynasty.
His dynasty. And how does God dismantle that final pillar? That brings us to the 10th plague. The death of the firstborn. The target is Pharaoh himself, the claimed divine son. It is a final, crushing judgment on pride, false security, and dynastic continuity.
This plague strikes at the deepest possible level, life itself. But we have to point out the historical retributive justice at play here, because this doesn't just happen in a vacuum.
No, context is everything here.
Years earlier, at the very beginning of the Exodus story, Pharaoh had ordered the systematic murder of all Hebrew infant boys by drowning them in the Nile.
Right.
He weaponized the river against their children. Now, decades later, that exact same judgment returns upon the houses of Egypt. The universe balances the scales.
It does.
But the crucial universe-altering difference here is how Israel is spared.
Exactly. Israel is not spared simply because they are Israelites.
They aren't.
No, they are not spared because they are inherently better or more moral or because they have a special genetic lineage. They are spared only through a very specific act, the blood of the Passover lamb.
Okay.
They are instructed by God, through Moses, to sacrifice a flawless lamb and paint its blood on the doorposts of their homes.
That's right. And God promises that when the final judgment sweeps through the land of Egypt that night, it will literally pass over the houses marked by that blood.
Okay, wait. Substitutionary mercy. I'm looking at our notes, and that's the term used to describe this. Substitutionary mercy.
Yes.
I have to be honest, that sounds like a legal contract from the 1800s or some incredibly dense theology textbook.
It is a bit of a mouthful.
Break that down for me. Explain it like I'm 5. How does animal blood on a wooden doorpost act as a substitute, and why is that merciful?
Okay, think of it like this. Justice dictates that the penalty for rebellion and sin is death. That is the established moral law of the universe in this framework.
Okay, action and reaction.
Right. Judgment is coming to every house in Egypt because rebellion against the Creator is universal. But God, in His mercy, provides a loophole, a substitute.
The substitute.
He says, I will accept the life of this innocent lamb in place of the life of your firstborn. The lamb dies so the family can live.
Deliverance doesn't come through political negotiation. It doesn't come through an armed slave rebellion. And it doesn't come from being a quote-unquote good person. It comes entirely through sacrificial blood.
The judgment passes over houses that are marked by obedience and covenant trust in that substitute.
Exact.
That is incredibly profound. And here is where this deep dive expands from a local historical event to a cosmic blueprint.
Oh, yeah. This is where we zoom out.
Our historical and theological sources don't just leave this story quarantined in ancient Egypt. They map this entire event onto a massive, sweeping biblical framework.
It's a huge shift in scale.
It is like we've been looking at a single puzzle piece, and now we are zooming out to see how this one story is actually blueprint for the entire picture of human history from beginning to end. Let's walk through this grand narrative.
It really is a fractal story. The pattern repeats at every level.
Fractal, I love that.
Yeah, because the story doesn't actually start in Egypt. It starts in eternity. In the scope of eternal time, the plagues are not some random improvisation by God because things got out of hand.
It wasn't plan B.
No. Before Egypt even existed, God had determined to make His name known and to redeem a people. The Exodus is eternal sovereignty stepping into human history.
Then it moves through creation and the fall. We talked about how the plagues are creation in reverse. The natural world obeying its creator to deconstruct an arrogant empire.
Exactly.
And Pharaoh is the ultimate archetype of the fall, right? He is the embodiment of humanity trying to enthrone itself, to be its own god, exploiting others to build its own kingdom.
Precisely. Pharaoh is fallen power confronted by holy justice. But God doesn't just judge. He remembers His covenant.
The promise.
Yes. God acts in Egypt because centuries earlier, He made a promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The plagues are the terrifying judicial side of covenant faithfulness, just as the Passover lamb is the merciful side.
He bound Himself to these people, and He is keeping His word.
He is. Which results in redemption and the establishment of the kingdom.
Right.
Israel is delivered by pure divine power, not their own strength. The false trusts of Egypt are exposed, the oppressors are defeated, and it announces that Yahweh, not Pharaoh, is the true king.
Israel is freed to live under the holy rule of their true sovereign.
But the historical narrative also contains a stark warning about exile.
Ah, right. It's a double-edged sword.
This blueprint works both ways. The memory of Egypt becomes a cautionary tale for Israel later on. Being part of God's people by outward association doesn't exempt anyone from accountability.
Because they fail too, later on.
Oh, constantly. When Israel later rebels, when they adopt the idols of the nations around them, the exact logic of the plagues reappears in their own judgment.
They face famine, defeat, and eventual exile. God's justice is impartial.
But thankfully, the story doesn't end in exile. The narrative constantly points forward to restoration.
Hope on the horizon.
If you read the later prophets, like Isaiah and Jeremiah, they constantly use this Exodus imagery. They talk about a new deliverance, a new highway through the desert, a new victory over false gods.
They use the grammar of the plagues and the parting of the Red Sea to give hope that God will act again.
And all of that, this entire massive pattern of bondage, judgment, and deliverance, converges on one historical figure.
The Messiah.
Yes, the New Testament explicitly and repeatedly calls Jesus the Passover lamb.
That is the critical connection.
This is the ultimate fulfillment. Jesus fulfills the Exodus pattern. He doesn't just confront a political king, he confronts a deeper Pharaoh.
Satan, sin, and death itself.
Exactly. He defeats the unseen powers holding all of humanity captive. His death on the cross, where he acts as the ultimate substitute, taking the judgment of God upon himself, and his resurrection, are the definitive display of divine supremacy over the false gods of this world.
He is the true deliverer.
He is.
Which brings us to the church and the age we live in now. The mandate for the church, according to this framework, is to live as a people who have seen behind the curtain.
Right.
We have seen the emptiness of idols. We aren't supposed to fear the false gods of our culture because we know how the story ends.
We do, and we know there is a final judgment coming.
Yeah.
The book of Revelation, the final book of the Bible, is heavily patterned after the Exodus. It describes eschatological judgments, meaning the final events at the end of the world.
And what do we see? Water turning to blood, darkness, terrifying locusts.
The pattern established in Egypt points to the end of time. Idolatry, empire, and human arrogance will not survive the final universal judgment of God.
Leading to the ultimate finale, the new creation, where God dwells fully with his people and there are no idols, no counterfeit sovereignties, no oppressive empires left.
Complete restoration.
The plagues, as terrifying as they are, point forward to that final, complete cleansing of creation. It is the exact same blueprint. The living God reigns and false gods fail.
It's an incredible narrative arc.
Okay, we have zoomed way out to see the cosmic scale. Now I want to zoom right back into your everyday life listening to this right now.
Yeah, let's bring it home.
Because the real danger of a deep dive like this is looking at Pharaoh and saying, wow, what an arrogant, terrible guy, while completely ignoring the Pharaoh living inside our own hearts.
Oh, that is so easy to do.
Our analysis lays out several common myths and intensely practical implications we need to unpack before we finish.
The first myth we have to completely debunk is that these plagues were just special effects.
Right.
They're not spectacles for our entertainment, and they aren't meant to just make a cool movie scene. They're theological judgments with immense, terrifying moral weight.
Right. And the second myth is that this is just ancient, tribal, anti-Egypt propaganda. Like, oh, the Israelites just wrote this to make their political enemies look bad.
Right, like an ancient smear campaign.
Exactly.
But the text is definitely polemical, meaning it is an aggressive attack on Egyptian theology, but its target is much broader than just one nation on a map.
It's universal.
Every human system, every empire, every corporation, every political party that absolutizes itself, meaning it claims ultimate authority and demands total allegiance, is implicated here.
Wow.
The plagues are a confrontation of universal human idolatry.
I'm glad you brought up that word, absolutizes. That ties perfectly into the third myth, which is externalizing the message.
Yes, pointing the finger.
We love to point the finger at the pharaohs out there in the world, the dictators, the corrupt CEOs, while giving a free pass to the pharaoh-like pride inside our own lives.
We all have it.
We all have that innate human desire to rule our own little kingdoms without God, to be the architects of our own reality, to control everyone around us.
Exactly. And the fourth myth is the one we touched on earlier, the false idea that judgment and love are opposed to each other.
Right, the modern dilemma.
We have to remember that the exact same God who brings terrifying judgment upon Egypt is the God who redeems Israel. His love demands justice.
And finally, the fifth danger is missing Christ in all of this. Without Christ, without the substitutionary mercy of the Passover lamb, the plagues are just a terrifying, depressing story of destruction.
It would just be a tragedy.
But with him, we see the redemptive pattern of the Lamb who takes away the sins of the world.
It changes everything.
So, bringing this all the way home, what are the practical implications for you, the listener, right now? The text outlines a few key actionable takeaways.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
First, you have to actively discern your idols. And again, it's not about whether you have a carved statue of a frog in your living room.
Probably not.
It's about asking, what functions as the Nile River in my life?
This is the most crucial diagnostic question you can ask yourself.
Yeah.
Idolatry today rarely announces itself. It doesn't ask you to bow to a golden calf.
It's much more subtle.
It comes dressed in a suit and tie. It comes dressed as necessity or financial wisdom or career progress or the perfect romantic relationship or your political affiliation.
It sneaks up on you.
Discerning your idols means examining what you trust more than God when a crisis hits.
Okay, give us an example.
If you lose your job, do you lose your entire sense of self-worth? If your political candidate loses, do you feel like the world is literally ending?
Oh man, a lot of people feel that right now.
That is disordered trust. That is your Nile.
Wow, that hits close to home. The second implication is a transfer of allegiance. The theological notes state beautifully that conversion, becoming a Christian, is not just adding Jesus to an existing pantheon of trusts.
Right. You don't just put Jesus on the shelf next to your career ambitions, your bank account, and your social status. Like, he's just another utility provider.
That's exactly what people do, though.
But following Christ means being brought out of slavery to those other things. It is a complete, radical transfer of ultimate loyalty. He is Lord of all, or he is not Lord at all.
Third, we have to speak truth courageously. Think about Moses. He didn't go into Pharaoh's throne room and try to negotiate a compromise with the false gods.
He didn't say, hey, can Yahweh maybe share the river with Happy?
Right, let's work out a timeshare. No, he just spoke the word of the Lord. In our modern culture, we can't compromise by baptizing the idols of our current age and pretending they are compatible with the truth.
And fourth, for anyone listening who is in any position of leadership, Pharaoh is the ultimate blazing red warning sign.
Oh, this is a massive one. I love how the analysis phrases this. Authority detached from truth becomes cruelty.
That is a universal principle. Any leadership that demands absolute allegiance from its people while resisting any accountability itself is already under divine judgment.
No matter the scale.
Whether you are leading a family, managing a department in a business, or running a nation, leaders must actively reject that Pharaoh-like instinct for control, self-protection, and hardness of heart.
You must lead with humility.
And it is important to note here, looking entirely objectively at the theological framework, that this applies universally.
To everyone.
Any human system, any government, left, right, or center, that detaches its authority from truth and absolutizes its own power falls under this exact same historical warning.
The biblical text doesn't care about modern partisan debates.
Not at all. It judges the arrogance of power itself, wherever it is found.
That is such a critical distinction. It's an equal opportunity warning system for human pride.
Exactly.
The fifth implication is about holding on in suffering. For believers who are facing actual oppression, systemic injustice, or deep personal hardship, the plagues offer a profound, counterintuitive comfort.
They remind us that oppression is never invisible to God.
He sees it.
He hears the cries of the enslaved. Systems that crush the vulnerable, structures that exploit the weak for economic gain, they will not stand forever.
God sees, he judges, and he will redeem.
That truth should give immense, stubborn endurance to anyone who feels weary, marginalized, or oppressed by the broken systems of this world.
And finally, the last implication is a call to worship with reverence. Our notes summarize this perfectly. The Lord is not manageable.
He isn't a genie in a bottle.
Right. He isn't the patron saint of our personal pet projects. He is holy, and he commands the sea, the sky, the dust, and death itself.
True worship begins exactly where illusion ends.
Say that again.
True worship begins where illusion ends, when we finally stop pretending that we are in control of our own destinies, when we stop pretending that our money, our social status, or our politics can save us from the ultimate realities of life and death.
When that illusion is shattered, that is when we can actually begin to worship the living God in spirit and in truth. What an incredible journey. Let's synthesize everything we've uncovered today. We started with Pharaoh's arrogant, dismissive question, who is the Lord?
And we have seen the definitive answer.
We have seen how the 10 plagues were not a random series of natural disasters, but the surgical, systematic answer to that question. They dismantled the false gods of Egypt piece by piece, proving that the Creator governs nature, not fragmented deities.
We explored how the plagues reveal a universe governed by a patient but perfectly just God.
Where delayed judgment is an opportunity for mercy, but rejected mercy ultimately becomes judgment.
We traced how this exact blueprint, this pattern of bondage, judgment, and deliverance, echoes through the entire grand narrative of Scripture.
culminating in the ultimate substitutionary mercy of Jesus Christ, the true Passover lamb who defeats the ultimate Pharaoh of sin and death.
The plagues tell us, unequivocally, that true power doesn't lie in oppressive empires, massive bank accounts, or human sovereignty, but in the living God alone.
It is a blueprint that violently strips away the illusions we build our lives upon, revealing the only foundation that is truly solid.
Amen to that.
Which brings me back to our core theme and a final, provocative question I want to leave you with.
Something to chew on.
We talked about how true worship begins where illusion ends and how idolatry is disordered trust. The plagues demonstrated that false gods ultimately destroy their worshippers.
They do.
The life-giving Nile turned to a river of blood. The fertility frogs became a rotting, suffocating plague. What the Egyptians trusted to save them became the very source of their torment.
The total reversal.
So take a hard, honest look at what you are trusting right now for your ultimate security, your status, or your core identity. Imagine if the illusion of its power were stripped away tomorrow.
What would happen?
If that thing, that high-paying job, that retirement account, that relationship, that political system, were suddenly turned against you, would you be completely destroyed?
Or would you be okay?
Would you remain standing because your allegiance is rooted somewhere much deeper in a God who actually has the power to save? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been great.
Keep questioning your assumptions, keep exploring the grand narratives that shape our reality, and we'll see you next time.